First things first, we need to preheat our oven. So we're gonna roast these veggies at a high temperature, and we're doing that because we wanna brown the outside of our veggies, but we still want the inside to maintain what I call a tender, crisp interior, right? That means they're soft and you can bite through them, but they've got a little bit of a bite to them. Like they're not like mushy, they're not like meh, soft. Like they still have like integrity. Like if you bite them, like you can still feel like it's a carrot or it's a Brussels sprout or it's a piece of squash. So what we're gonna do is preheat the oven. There we go. So if you hear it beeping behind me and clicking, there you go. I actually preheated this oven ahead of time because you want to preheat your oven 30 minutes at least ahead of time. Because like, even though the thermostat on your oven will say, you know, it's at temperature, like the inside of the oven, the whole inside is not necessarily at temperature. So when you're roasting or when you're baking or when you're doing whatever, it's a really good idea to make sure that your oven preheats at least 30 minutes ahead of time. And like I said, we want, you know, sort of like a crisp or a browned outside with like a semi-crisp inside, a tender crisp inside. Problem is, if we use a much lower temperature, they'll just get really soft. Like the outside won't brown very quickly, and the inside will cook all the way through, and it'll be a little mushy. They'll still taste delicious. It's not an emergency, it's not a deal breaker, but I'm personally looking for vegetables that kind of still hold up to a bite, even though they're still a little soft in the middle. Now we're gonna chop our vegetables. There's one thing you need to know about chopping veggies for roasting, and it's that if you have one kind of vegetable, they all need to be chopped the same size. So all these carrots need to be chopped the same size relative to each other. These squash need to be chopped the same size relative to each other. And the same with these Brussels sprouts. Now, these Brussels sprouts are easy. We just cut them in half like they were whole Brussels sprouts earlier, and we cut them in half. Cleaned them up a little bit. We just peeled off like any bad brown, like wilted leaves on the edge and cut off like the little dry end on the bottom, cut them in half, and these are ready to go. But I'm going to show you how to prepare these carrots and these squash because these are a little different. And I want to show you some tricks that are really handy. So first what we're going to grab is our trash bowl. This is really important when chopping vegetables because you end up with like peels and greens all over the place. And the more crap you have on your workspace, like the more likely you are to cut yourself because you're kind of trying to maneuver around things and they're making a mess and they're falling off the counter and you're chopping and trying to catch something and it falls. Just have a trash bowl. Trash immediately goes in there and your workspace stays clean. So I'm going to show you kind of a fun way to peel carrots. It's really fast. First, what we're going to do is we're going to take these guys and we're going to cut off these greens. They're really pretty though. I love these greens. I've got these gorgeous multicolor rainbow carrots just because I wanted to like make these more attractive. We're going to cut off our ends with our greens. And then we're going to cut off the very tips with the root because the nubbins are kind of funky. See you later. You're out of here. Boop. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the best way to peel a carrot. I've got my peeler right here, and we're going to hold this, and we're going to set it on this little flat edge, which makes it much more secure. See, like that. And now I've got a flat edge here, which makes it easier to hold as opposed to like a tip that's rolling around. And we're just going to peel down like this. And this is how I've done it for restaurants, because it's so much faster than being like peel, 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 peel. And you got freaking carrot peels flying all over the place. Drives me insane. Also, if you peel them, you don't really need to wash them. These carrots are actually pretty sandy. Peeling will get rid of all that sand. So see, that carrot's already done. How fast was that? All the little peels go in the trash bowl. And if you compost, the trash bowl is actually the easiest way to like contain all of your pre-compostable material. It's really handy. Got another carrot, got the secure side down, secure side where my finger is because they're both flat, and peel, 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 peel all the way around. And done. But it's like, what, 4 seconds to peel that carrot and the peels weren't like flying all over the place. Like I've actually, I moved out of my last apartment. And when we moved out, we had this like bin where the trash can was, and it was just kind of like a piece of furniture that we would take the trash bag in and out of and not really touch the bin itself. And when we pulled out the bin, there were like carrot peelings stuck to the wall, like where they had like, you know, you're peeling carrots and they're like flying everywhere, and they had like stuck to the wall and dried and been there for probably like, God knows how long. They were like part of the wall at that point. We had to paint them or scrape them off with a paint scraper and then repaint that part of the wall. So that's why I'm really a big fan of like managed carrot chopping. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel the rest of these guys, and then I'm going to show you how to chop them. We've got our carrots all peeled, and I'm going to move my trash bowl over here so it's not in the way. Let's Turn that around. Whoop. Look how beautiful those carrots are. This is why I love rainbow carrots. Like this, you don't have to use rainbow carrots. I just bought them because they were pretty and they were on sale. But look at that, we got like kind of a gold, an orange, a purple, a yellow, and a red. And they're freaking gorgeous. So when it comes to chopping your vegetables, bigger is better. Small veggies will roast really, really fast. Small vegetables like Brussels sprouts will roast relatively fast. Any vegetable that's like cut into small pieces will roast really fast. And like I said before, we want to manage how quickly the inside of the vegetable cooks. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut these carrots in half. They're also easier to eat. I think they're more attractive on the plate, but that's something to keep in mind when chopping your veggies, right? Like you don't necessarily want really big, thick pieces, right? So like we're not going to like have like huge pieces of this delicata squash, but we want sort of thin with lots of surface area for browning. And so that's why for these guys, what we're gonna do is we're just going to cut them in half. And we're gonna leave them full length because I just think that's beautiful. Like if you want, you can cut them in half, right? That's totally fine. But this way they have a perfect flat surface where they're gonna come in contact with the pan just like that. And that whole area down there is gonna be an opportunity to brown. And if this was cut into like little tiny pieces, like it would just cook too fast, they would become soft too quickly. And I prefer to leave them big. We're gonna cut these guys in half. Actually, this guy is like a mega carrot. So we're gonna cut it in half and see how it looks. So this is really big compared to this. Like, can you see the size difference? Right? So that's going to create a problem because this is going to cook a lot faster than this. So we want them to be both about the same size. So we're going to cut these into quarters so that they have roughly the same mass as those carrots right there. So let's cut these into quarters and compare them again. Alrighty, that is much closer. If you look at like how much like mass of carrot there is there, these are going to cook much closer to the same speed. So those are looking good. We're going to cut this guy in a quarter as well. Ta-da! These look really nice. And we're going to move them off to the side. And we're going to cut these guys in half and see how big they look once we've cut them in half. So cut that guy in half. It's a little bigger than I would like. I'm debating if I want to cut it in half again into a quarter. Yeah, I think I'm going to cut these into quarters too. This is like a big deal when it comes to cooking, is constantly like pausing to think about what's going to work and reevaluating. Like it doesn't take a lot of time, it doesn't take a lot of thought, it doesn't take a lot of like stress, like, oh my God. Because ultimately if one cooks a little bit faster or one cooks a little bit slower, it's not that big a deal, right? It's still going to be delicious. One might be a little softer, one might be a little crisper. It's not a deal breaker. But we're just going to make a little bit of effort ahead of time just to like avoid the pitfalls. So we're going to cut these guys into quarters as well. Another thing to keep in mind about carrots is like clearly, obviously one end is wider than the other. So this end is going to be softer and this end is going to be thicker. There's no way around it. It's a carrot. So, I mean, that's just the reality of like cooking anything that is like, strangely shaped. Like part of it will cook faster and there's nothing you can do about it. I'm going to cut this guy. This guy's pretty small, so I think we can just leave him in half. Oh, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? I just think they're so beautiful. If I could live on purple carrots forever, I probably would. And we're going to cut this guy in half. He's also pretty small. So I think we're going to be fine. Yeah, he's going to be fine in half as well. Alrighty. Now what we're going to do is put them in their baking sheet. So we're going to put them in here. I'm going to kind of scatter them around. And what we're going to do, I'm going to take off my rings. So if you're wearing jewelry, you don't want to be wearing them for this, wearing anything on your hands for this. So what we're going to do is we're going to scatter it with oil. Oil first, because we want to make them sticky, right? We're just going to scatter them with a little bit of cooking oil. Boop. And then I'm going to dry off my hands because they're a little wet from handling the carrots. I don't want to stick wet hands in a salt pig because that would be a huge mess. Alrighty, we're going to grab some salt, and we're going to use a fairly generous amount of salt. Right? So what the salt is going to do is it's not only going to season the carrots, it's also going to help soften them a little bit, right? Because we're going to be cooking them relatively quickly at a high heat, and we want the salt to help kind of cook them down a little bit. And then we're going to add a little pepper. And I'm going to toss them all together to make sure they're all evenly coated with salt and oil and pepper. And I'm going to immediately regret not having a paper towel at hand. Whoops. Alrighty, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna kind of space them evenly. Remember, we want the flat side touching the pan because that's where browning happens. And if you have them like this, like if you were to look like close up to this, like very small little line of carrot is actually touching the pan, right? So we're gonna flip them over so that the flat side is touching the pan, and that's more opportunity for browning. And we're just gonna kind of scatter them around. And remember, we don't wanna crowd the pan. We want to make sure there's a fair amount of space so they don't steam. So flip them all over. There we go. Maybe turn them around a little bit. Kind of like playing Tetris. That looks good. This is where you can get a little OCD and be like, I want everything perfectly evenly spaced. But it's not really that complicated. It's more of like what's going to be functionally useful. Okay, there we go. We got good space. I'm going to ruin my little hand towel with greasy fingers. Womp womp. I wish I had a paper towel. And I'm going to show you these. Now you can see here there's a lot of space in between these carrots, right? Anywhere there's not a lot of space, we're going to create a little bit more. All the flat sides are touching the pan. Now you'll see this one's bowing up a little bit. Like, I don't know if you can see that, where it's like, as they cook, they're going to bow in different shapes. There's no way around it. It's just the reality of cooking carrots. Like trying to like press them down with something, I guess could work, but I don't know if it's really that worth it. So if you're cooking your carrots and you find that they're like, as they're cooking, it's fine. Like there's that one, or those carrots just won't be as brown. There's really nothing to be done about it. So we're gonna set these off to the side and I'm gonna show you how to prep some other veggies.